I believe this is a three-pronged attack upon people, both Christians and non-Christians. Number one, I do believe that there is a release of demonic entities that we have not been facing before. I do believe these demons are vicious. They are the most vicious of the vicious, the most evil of the evil demons that we have ever faced. They are being released from their holding cells, whether that was the bottomless pit or somewhere else. I believe, according to Revelations, I believe it is chapter 8 and chapter 9, these entities are being released. Whoever is releasing them, whether it is CERN, whether it is because of the approach of this Nibiru mini-solar system, or all of the above, whatever is causing it, for sure, I don't know, it could be one or the other or all of the above, but whatever is going on, these demonic entities are so fierce, the likes of which you've never seen. They're not your normal demon. They are big, they are powerful, and they're fierce, and they're rebellious. They are rebellious in nature. They will not submit to anyone or anything. Even in the name of Jesus, some of these entities don't want to submit. This is the reason why they were imprisoned. Their reluctance to submit to the authority of the Creator, and this is why they had to be bound in chains. They would not submit to His rule of law. These are being released at this time. The other thing I believe could be causing some of this is the approach of Planet X, of Nibiru, the destroyer. According to the Colbrin, some of the parts I have read, it makes mention of the fact that people lost their sanity. People were affected. Their minds were affected. And they lost their sanity whenever this object began to approach the earth and get close to planet Earth. Something happened to their minds. And of course, we've talked about this, how the frequency of the earth is being changed. You talked about it, Larry, at the beginning of this program. You know, the frequency of the earth, the vibrational frequency of the earth is being changed. And this is affecting people. And this is being caused by the sun and by the electromagnetic fields that are being affected on this planet by this approaching mini-solar system, this approaching dwarf star, neutron star. And so that is the second thing is affecting people. And the third thing that is affecting people, of course, is the natural things, you know, the uncertainty about the future. All the electronic devices that are on, the cell towers, the smart meters, the GMOs, you know, the genetically altered organisms, all these things are affecting us, the chemtrailing. So we are being affected on three areas, on our mind, on our soul, and on our bodies, on our spirit. I mean, that, you know, soul and mind is basically the same, on our soul, mind, on our bodies, and on our spirits. So we have to, I believe we need to heed the warning of this sister. We need to trust in Jesus. We need to ask Him to cleanse us, to purge us, and we need to be filled with the Spirit like never before. So I have more to say on this, but I'm going to quit here, and I'm going to let Larry share, because, I mean, there's a lot here. There's a lot here to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. I was still looking back at Psalm 112, and that's what jumped out at me on verse 8 there, Psalm 112 and 8, talking about the way His people should be. His heart is established and steady. And I'm reading from the Amplified, King James Amplified. It says, His heart will be established and steady, and He will not be afraid while He waits to see His desire upon His adversaries. Basically, talking about, you know, that's really a song or a psalm to God's people saying, hang in there and trust on Him and watch what happens to your adversaries around you. But, you know, to say what you were saying, and I'll just make two comments here on what you were saying. Number one, Stuart Best has been doing a really in-depth study on something called gravitational waves that were unknown just like wormholes and all these other things for a long, long time. But Paul LaViolette did some work on gravitational waves, and they're coming, and it appears that gravitational waves are implemented into our solar system during a time of a catastrophe, a cosmic catastrophe, which would possibly also dovetail right in with the destroyer and its entourage, all at the same time. You know, Jesus said, referring to our time, he said, when you see all these things. Now, I don't know what's hard about that. Jesus said, when you see all these things. So that's what we're talking about now, all different things coming together at the very same time in history, or as you might say, the biblical timeline. So there's gravitational waves, the destroyer and its entourage, and one of the things about the gravitational waves that I've seen is that it appears that gravitational waves will cause a paradigm shift in a person's mental condition or their mentality, and they'll begin to, I don't know, this is Larry's term, become zombified or whatever. It changes their way of thinking. And another, that's one thing. Okay, number two, because I know we're running out of time here towards the break, is the fact, I know you got a phone call, Augusto, not from me, but from somebody else, because they called me later, talking about a manifestation of demonic activity, in other words, demons all over the place, and Bigfoot coming out in the open. And, you know, and let me say this, okay? You know, an old friend of mine, I called him a friend because he never did stab me in the back. And if you don't do that, well, you're my friend pretty much. But, and I don't have a lot of friends. So Red Elk was a friend of mine. And one thing Red Elk shared with me when I used to correspond with him was the fact that those things under the earth, you know, that come out, he said they're going to. He said they've tried to break out in a few places, and he said here and there, scattered around the world, there's a few of them can get out. He said, but not en masse, so to speak. He said, but there is coming a time where there will be a breaking out and a greater manifestation of these things on the planet, including the Bigfoot, you know, groups. And, you know, that's, you know, I know a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their mind around Bigfoot or even a giant, actually. But, you know, I've seen Bigfoot up here where I live. I've seen them. I've laid my own eyeballs on them and looked at them, and they turned and they ran off. And I smell them a lot of times. There'll be nights when I'll smell this thing coming up. It's not a skunk particularly, but it got a pretty bad smell. I like the smell of bears better, and I've had close encounters with those too. But these Bigfoot things, you know, I've even interviewed people over in Arkansas in the same mountain system I'm in that saw a group of 6 or 7 or 8 of these things, 7 or 8 foot tall, you know, around their dog pens in their backyard. And so I know they're around. It's not like they're not around. However, I said all that to say this. We have come into a time, and Christians need to begin to realize that this is not a fairy tale, that we have come into a time now to where the demonic realm, in other words, those locked up, and I really like, I like the book of Enoch, the book of Jasher, the book of Jubilees. It talks about those things that are locked up, but there also comes a time when they're released. And so we're in the overlap. We're in a time frame of overlap to where some of these are being released, and I think, Augusto, some of this stuff is in the category of high evil, like you saw in your experience, your vision or dream. Just it's beyond the pale evil and horrific entities. However, we're, you know, I look back at Psalm 112, kind of ironic that came up today, but it says, keep your heart steady on him who called you and you know, will deliver you. And so I'm saying this, do not be dismayed at creatures and entities and demons that are now being given more leeway on the planet around us. It's going to increase. This is not going to, we're not talking about an occasional sighting. I'm talking about you're going to begin to see them more and more, and that's why you ought to, as Augusto says, have your house in order and be prayed up every single day.
There was an experience I had some years ago. I called it the vision of the vicious wolves. In that vision, it's very interesting, and I wanted to share it because it has to do with this, all these things we're talking about, and it is so important. We need to understand these things, people, because we're coming up on it right now real fast, and these things are beginning to happen all around us. It's beginning to happen all around us, and so I do believe that we are in a time when we need to probably pay attention to these things, the vicious wolves. I just want to read it because this was given to me back in 2009, okay, in June 8th of 2009. It's called the vicious wolves. And this is what I received, okay. This was a very strange dream. It was what you call the vision of the night because it was not a dream. It was real. It was real. I mean, I was there. It was real. And I woke up from this thing and never forgot about it. That's how I know it was a vision of the night. And this is what I received, okay? And this is what I saw. I was in this house with a group of people which I perceived to be Christians. As I looked through the window outside the house, I began to see these horrible-looking beasts. They looked like wolves, but they were not wolves. Wolves is the closest thing I could resemble it to, but it was kind of a, maybe like a werewolf, but maybe like the abominable snowman, like a yeti. I don't know. It was kind of a mixture of all those things. And whenever they came upon a person, they would maul them, okay? They would start tearing them apart mercilessly and then kill them. When I saw this, I quickly told the Christians, okay, the people that were inside the house, shut all the doors and all the windows and make sure that they are shut tight. Soon as they began to do what I had told them, they started shutting down the doors and shutting down the windows, closing all the doors. Someone shouted that they already had gotten inside the house. And they began to kill, destroy, and tear apart the people that were in the house. Then I heard the voice of the Lord said to me, look up to me, and they will not harm you. Okay? They will not even know you are there. As I heard the death cries of the people coming closer to where I was, and the wolves were just tearing them apart. They were just, I could hear the screaming. I could hear the suffering of these people, the being tormented and being just torn apart by these beings, these monsters, these beasts. I told them not to look at the wolves, not to look at these creatures, but just to look up to the Lord. As I heard the wolves coming to where we were, I looked up, and I remained very still and quiet, and I could hear the wolves. I could hear these beasts all around me trying to find me, but they couldn't find me, and therefore they couldn't touch me. It seemed to me that they were not able to see me or smell us or discern where we were, as well as the other Christians that were looking up to him. Now, back when I had this experience back in 2009, I didn't have the full revelation of what this meant, but I believe I do now. I believe that these things that we've been talking about, Larry, is an invasion of evil spirits upon this planet, which is related to the darkness that I also was told about, that is going to try to destroy and kill God's people. Only the Lord will be able to protect his people in the days to come. And people need to begin to practice the presence of God now. People need to begin to cleanse their houses of all leaven now. People need to begin to put the blood of the Lamb upon the dintles and the posts of their home, the doors and the windows of their homes now. The people need to begin to learn to walk in the Spirit while we still have time to practice and be trained now. The time is coming and is upon us when there is no more time. Just like, now this was in 09. I wrote this in 09, okay? I wrote this in 09, 7 years ago. And I said the time is coming when there will be no more time. Well, I just got a word from the Lord this July 4th. There is no more time. I do believe that this has to do with what we were talking about in the first hour, Larry, based on that word that sister received from the Lord. Trust on the Lord Jesus Christ. Keep your eyes on Him. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on Him. And this is exactly what I received back in 09. And I believe this is a perilous time that we are in, that if people do not do what we are sharing with them to do, what the prophets are telling them to do, what the watchmen are telling them to do, and they don't decide not to do this, you're running danger of being severely harmed and even destroyed at your own peril. You are not listening at your own peril. So that is about all I wanted to say about that. I don't know if you have any further comments on that, Larry.
Well, I just have to, I agree with you, Augusto, and I think we are now in that time almost of nightmares. The interesting thing is, though, and I don't think it was by chance that we received that Psalms 112 to read tonight, because you're exactly right. His people, if we ever had a direction, a word of direction, it is to keep our minds or our hearts stayed on Him who called us out of this darkness, actually. And it's, I can't share with people enough that a lot of these things that are going to come to pass and begin to manifest in our midst, I've shared with people a long time that they were going to begin to one day see things that they would rebuke and they wouldn't buke. In other words, what they rebuked wouldn't be fazed by that word they said. And I've also said to people, you'll go in your home one day and shut your doors and close your windows and it walks through the wall. What do you do then? It's like, we've been given the earnest of our inheritance. We've been given the ability to walk in spiritual warfare, but if we choose not to do that, Augusto, if we keep our mind on other things besides our calling and our election, then we will really be found wanting in a time that we cannot, we can't be caught off guard. It's in a time that we need our spiritual wits about us and our abilities to walk in the Spirit. We won't be able to because we've never let ourselves be trained in doing that.
Yeah, what I think about when I go over that experience I had also, and I didn't mention this, so I'm going to mention this real quick. And what I got from that experience, when I go back to it, when the Lord said to me, keep your eyes on me, look up and keep your eyes on me, and close all the doors, I began to tell the people, close all the doors. Well, isn't it interesting that has been the emphasis that I have been telling people this last few months? Close all the doors, not necessarily of your physical home, but of your spiritual house, which is, our body, our home. Close all the doors. Close every portal, every door that you have opened through sin, through generational curses, through disobedience, through whatever. Shut that now. Shut it if you have committed sin. If you're living in a habitual sin, shut that door now. And, this door is going to allow these things to come in. And so this is very important.